Welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space. Welcome to our third season of our podcast, where we're doing something a little bit different, where we have had 6 episodes that we've talked with community experts and friends of the podcast. And we're finishing up this mini season with a conversation about bucket lists. So if you have listened to the podcast before, you know that I often share about these. And so I'm excited to have my coworkers and friends, Les and Anastasia, here with me today.
Awesome.
Thanks
for having us.
So for those of you that are watching this podcast on YouTube, you're going to notice that in about 5 or so minutes, we're going to do a quick little wardrobe change. And that's just because technology is not always our best friend. And so we did have to do a little bit of editing. We're excited to talk to you guys about bucket lists. And so I'm curious, Les, Anastasia, have you guys done bucket lists before?
Yeah, so I haven't always done seasonal bucket lists where they're year round, but I've done summer bucket lists specifically since probably 2016 or 2017, just in terms of trying to make sure I kept my summer moving with all of the things I was looking forward to. But this year we actually pivoted and did a bucket list specific to Pensacola. So it's been a really fun way to write out and look at everything that we wanted to do in this part of the country and really kind of get to explore the local area. And so over the last year, we've been working our way through what we want to do while we're stationed here. So it's been a fun little change from the traditional bucket list idea.
I had never done a seasonal bucket list before, and what prompted me to start was your episode at the end of 2020, at the end of season 2 on the Wing Space podcast. You introduced the idea of seasonal bucket lists as a new take or a different way to approach New Year's resolutions, and I really liked that. And I liked the opportunity to be able to kind of shift those goals and priorities with the changing of the seasons, with the flow of the year. And so I started doing seasonal bucket lists this winter in January, and then made one again for the spring, and this will be the third one I've made for the summer.
It's really cool to hear when people talk about having listened to the podcast and then taking little nuggets of information away. Although, with full disclosure, you do have to listen to them as the editor of the podcast, but it's always fun for me to hear people say, oh yeah, I heard that on the podcast. So I'm looking forward to this summer for a variety of reasons, and I think it'll be cool for us to have a conversation today about the different things that we'll be able to do with Anastasia and I being on the East Coast and, different weather patterns between Maryland and Florida, and then Les with you being on the West Coast. It'll be cool to hear what you guys are doing and what folks might be able to pull out of our conversation. So for me, by the time this podcast airs, I'll have kicked off the summer with my son graduating from high school and turning 18. And so I will be entering into kind of hibernation mode, at least for a couple of weeks, just to recover from all of that. And I'm really looking forward to just doing some reading and some relaxing and things like that. So I know that my summer is not super exciting as we get into it. It's going to start exciting, but not too exciting as we get into it. What about you, Anastasia? You guys are in a new town and have some fun things planned, it sounds like.
Yeah, so over the last year, we've really tried to maximize what we can find in the area, and it's been really neat because we've done some things that we wouldn't have previously done. But the items that are still remaining that I'm really holding out hope for is I want to see a sea turtle and a manatee in the wild. Manatee is a new addition because I didn't know that was a thing, but I am so excited. And so hopefully I get to see those in the wild. We want to hit up some natural springs just because we've seen a lot of the beach, but we haven't seen a lot of that. So those are coming. And then now that I'm down here, I appreciate Maryland crabs a lot more. So when I come up in the summer, that is also on my summer bucket list, is to be able to have some Maryland crabs and kind of a crab feast and just enjoy.
Especially living in Florida, I will say the Floridians try really hard to do the Maryland blue crab, but it's just not the same. So we'll make sure you enjoy those when you come up this summer.
Absolutely. If I see it on a menu here, I tend to get a little snarky because I'm like, no, it's not going to be right. It's not going to be the same. So I just don't even try. But the people around me tend to hear my frustrations. So I think that coming up and knowing what to expect will be much better than facing it out here.
I'm officially adding blue crabs to my list also because I don't get them nearly as often as I once did when I lived in Maryland. And as Jen mentioned, where I live on the West Coast is very, very, very hot in the summer. So we do a lot of our outdoor centric activities more in the fall and the spring and really even the winter. And then in the summer, counterintuitively, I tend to spend more time inside. So we have some household projects that we're looking forward to getting started, specifically with painting. That's one of the items on my summer bucket list, is to paint one of the rooms in the house. I'm limiting myself to one room per the bucket list so that I don't just go on a frenzy and spend the whole summer inside painting, but that is something I'm really looking forward to, is kind of getting the house situated and continuing to make it feel like home.
And I imagine, like you were saying, Les, it's a little different for you guys because it's so much warmer on the West Coast that you're doing more things inside than outside, whereas Anastasia and I are a little bit more enjoying the outside this time of year. Other than the home project things, what kinds of indoor bucket list things do you guys have planned for the summer?
Yeah, so like you, I haven't necessarily shared my bucket list with my partner because these are things that I want to be able to do whether he's up for them or not. I guess we could have a separate bucket list of things we intend on doing together. I have some reading goals, like you were saying. I have a list of books that I'd like to get through this summer. I also am really interested in spending my weekends at least unplugged, or as unplugged as I can be from social media platforms specifically, but also even just my email, my screens, and spending more time doing a project or a craft. And so with that, kind of distancing myself from those platforms and just trying to create some space there, I'd like to really start focusing on putting photo albums together and some scrapbooks, like physical coffee table style, hold it in your lap and look through your memories photo albums. Because something I've realized since I've taken myself off of social media is that I don't have any of my pictures anymore. They're all on these platforms that I really would like to spend a little less time on. So I'm going to make it a priority to get prints of some of our favorite photos and have them stored somewhere that we can enjoy without having to log on or remember a password or see a bunch of other stuff that we didn't, when we just really want to look back and relive some special moments. That's on there. I have some Peloton goals since I do like to work out outside for much of the year. This time of year I start kind of going indoors so I can have the fan and the AC and be in survival mode. So I've got some Peloton goals. Then also we've talked about, this is one that Mark and I have discussed that we'll be doing together, is taking some dance classes. So that's on our list as well. It's just kind of something outside of the box for us, a little out of our comfort zone.
I am super far behind in photo albums and stuff, so that's been on my list, and there's a couple that I want to finish to be able to give to Connor for graduation, so time is ticking on those items. Yeah, I feel like for me, and I think I heard you kind of saying the similar thing, is that once everything went digital on our phones and then we just upload them to social media, we're printing less pictures and we're not having the albums as much, and I want them physically in front of me. So yeah, I've got that as a yearly goal as well. What about you, Anastasia? What's some fun stuff that you're going to try to do inside this summer?
So for the most part, we kind of become really early. We're already early birds, but we definitely do things outside in the morning and in the evening because it gets really hot here in like the midpoint of the day. My poor dogs won't even go outside. It's like, they're like, no, it's not that bad. We're going to stay in until we absolutely can. So most of our outdoor stuff happens like before 7:30 or after 7:30, just because it's pretty brutal in the mid-afternoon. But inside, a few things that we're looking at is, it's funny that you say like you guys are making albums. We are working on digitizing albums. Mainly because we have albums from my mom and my dad that I want to be able to share with other relatives and other family members. And we now have the albums in Florida, which isn't as helpful to be able to share with relatives back in Maryland and in Pennsylvania. So we're working on digitizing all of our albums so we can share. And then we actually got for my mom a 10 by 14 like photo frame that you upload the photos to, and it just cycles. So she can see all the photos as they're coming, but they're like, as we go, more photos are added. So as opposed to printing them and having physical albums or having like multiple frames, we went the route of using technology to our benefit with being able to send photos from here that she can look at there. So it's just interesting again how everyone kind of does things in a different manner.
Would love personally, selfishly, to have that link for that, because I'm thinking that could be a really cool thing to have, that, the kids and the grandkids could easily just send, my mom some pictures. And with her living in a much smaller place now, it's harder to have pictures everywhere. And that sounds fun. But it sounds like we're all looking at not only creating memories, but then also saving those memories through photos and digital. It's really important. I really think. And I hope that, our listeners will take that idea and consider, are you saving pictures? Are you pulling them off of your social media? There's lots of different apps that you can do. I do ours on Snapfish. I just upload the pictures to Snapfish, play around with a book, and then I have it printed. So it's not, I guess, technically a physical picture, but it's a digital book that we have printed, and then it's easy to make. And there's lots of different companies that do that. And it's a good hot summer day thing to do, and it's also a good like rainy day project to work on. We have not a lot going on in terms of like plans for the summer. We are checking something off my mom's bucket list, though. She has always wanted to go to Maine. And, my dad was kind of, the typical, yeah, we'll get to it type person. And they never had a chance to go before he passed. So we typically, as a family, always go to Massanutten in Virginia for vacation. And this year, Mom kind of said, I want to go to Maine. So, my brother's kids have never been there before, and my kids were super little when we took them the last time. So, and my mom's really excited to see Maine, and she loves lobster. And so she's really looking forward to fresh lobster, like right out of the water. She loves whales and wants to go whale watching. Even though all of us will get a chance to do something that we enjoy, this is kind of, one of Mom's bucket list items and kind of doing the to-do list things for her. What about you guys? Do you have summer vacation plans?
Mine are going to be a little more relaxed in terms of this summer. So I have a trip up to Maryland planned at the very beginning of June, and then I'm doing a staycation. I've done a lot of traveling this spring. Every month it feels like I'm going to multiple places, and so we have Missouri, then we have Maryland, and so I'm just kind of looking forward to a quieter summer. So I'm doing a staycation, just gonna kind of enjoy. We have the beach right here. I can relax, just kind of disconnect for a few days, and I'm so excited.
Last year in September, when we did our staff self-care retreat, you were not able to attend with us, Anastasia, and you did a really cool thing on your own. We didn't even really know you were going to do it. You did your own self-care retreat alongside of us. So you had a general idea of what we were going to do, and then you kind of did that as well. I'm wondering, our listeners might be interested to know what some of your plans are for your staycation, how you kind of get in the mindset of that, because for some people going on a vacation just isn't feasible. But the idea of staying home means, cleaning house and laundry and just more of the same. And I'm sure that that's not what your staycation is going to be. So maybe our listeners might like to know, how do you put together a staycation?
It's similar to the idea of a bucket list. It's really just looking at the things that I want to do. So some of my favorite things are always going to the beach. I like exercising. I like moving. I like eating. I like trying fun drinks, and I like to read. So those are like if you're asking me what I'm doing, the majority of the time it's going to fall into one of those categories. So part of it I'll look at is going to the beach whenever I can. So that's kind of like a day by day. If the weather feels good, I'll go in the morning. I don't like to go when it's super hot. So if it's not great weather in the morning, then I just kind of switch gears. So fun beach reads. I'll save some like fluffier books to read over that week, so it feels like a little treat. I'll usually sign up for a class at a local studio, so try something different. Last year I tried like a wonderful restorative yoga class at a little place downtown. And then is there a new restaurant that I want to go to? So I'll try somewhere for happy hour, or I'll go out to lunch. If my husband's off work, he'll go with me, but for the most part, like I have no problem going and trying new places myself. So I'll just go and have a seat and bring a book and hang out for the afternoon, and usually take some naps, because that's also what I do on vacations. It's just kind of every day is a little bit different, but the goal is not doing normal work stuff. So like I probably won't come in my office at all. I will turn off notifications on my email. I will just kind of disconnect to the point where I can just enjoy where we are and what the place has to offer.
That's awesome. Makes me want to consider doing one myself. And it made me think that we probably need to create a list of like, what's hope and healing reading, because there's so many of us that are readers. That might be a fun way for us to just kind of share some fun reads, not only for the summer, but throughout the year. Now, we know what your plans are for the summer, Les, but tell us about your fun trip that you get to go on this summer. And if you have anything else that we're not too aware of.
That's it. That's the only thing. It's the only thing that I was able to finagle, because it is going to be on the opposite end of the spectrum from Anastasia's put together at home, stay in one place, and kind of eliminate the stress that can come with travel. Taking hers and adding it to mine. So I'm going to go to Maryland as well. And because most of my family is on the East Coast, I try to do one big trip a year at least, so that I have plenty of time to see everyone. And then at the same time, I've worked in a trip to Greece, which has been a destination on my travel bucket list for as long as I can remember. It's been one of my most sought after destinations. One of our favorite local businesses of Leonardtown, Kelly Sidorowitz of Evolve, hosts yoga retreats, and she picks some really amazing locations to have them. Last year, she chose Greece, and I passed it up. I thought, this is a bit much to plan with the notice that I had, but I told myself last year, if she does it again to Greece, I will go. And so it came around again, and I took the opportunity this time. And added bonus, my mom, upon hearing about these plans that I had, asked me how she would feel about having a +1, and it's a great opportunity for she and I to do something like that, because I can't even remember the last time that my mom and I were on a plane together, let alone going to somewhere like Greece that we're both just so excited about. So we're going to spend a week together in Maryland before we take off. Then we'll go spend 2 weeks together in Greece. We have some things planned there outside of the retreat, so we will do the yoga retreat, but we'll also take a cooking class in Athens. We have some arrangements in Santorini, so we'll get some killer beach time, do a little island hopping there. And then I'll have another week in Maryland on the other side of the trip. So that was partially to give myself a break from being on airplanes, but also to try to really work in some quality Maryland time around the trip to Greece. So that's what we've got in store.
That sounds amazing. You and I have talked about it, Les. I've been eyeing those retreats myself. And I may actually get an opportunity to talk about my trip to Greece next year, because we take our sons on a senior trip the summer before their senior year. So last summer we took our son to Costa Rica. That was his choice. And the younger one, next summer will be his senior summer. And he mentioned Greece the other day, and I'm all for it. So, there's a lot of wonderful things to see in Maryland and on the East Coast, but there's also a lot of wonderful things to see in the world. And, I've talked to people before that have said, well, I can't afford vacations like that. And I would I would challenge people to consider, maybe what's something this week that you could not do, and take that money and put it in an envelope. If you go out to eat a couple times a week, or if you grab, a coffee a couple times a week or something like that, where can you stash some money, and then you can afford to go on a vacation, even if it's not 2 weeks in Greece. Being able to see some things outside of, there's just so many beautiful things to see and do in the world. And I love being able to look at different places on the map and say, okay, where are we going next? Anything else that's on either of your bucket lists for this summer that we haven't touched on yet? We've all got a little bit of travel, a little bit of relaxation, some books to read, family to see.
I don't have any activities on my list that I haven't mentioned yet, but we could possibly spend a little time talking about how we chose the items that we prioritized for the season, because I think sometimes when we have so many different goals or interests or things that we've been thinking about doing and not creating the time for, it can be kind of daunting to think about compiling a list for a 3-month or 4-month period. And so I'm kind of curious how you chose the items that you did for your summer bucket lists.
Yeah, that's a great question, and a really good a good conversation to have. So I start with a little bit of help from the internet, and I Google summer bucket list, or whatever the season is. I Google it, and then I just start kind of looking through what some of those lists are, and think about some of the things that other people are doing in that particular season. Some of it works really well. It's interesting because the winter bucket lists, most of them include a lot of snow, and we are not fortunate enough, and neither are the two of you, to have a lot of snow. So, making, snowballs and snowmen and going sledding and snow angel, like that can't go on the winter bucket list. And I tend to hibernate in the winter. So I feel like the spring and the summer is my chance to out I go. And I usually start with what are the things in the house that I want to do. We already talked a little bit about the photo albums and things like that, but then I could go to the outside of the house, and I think about, what needs or wants do I have, and it includes things like, getting the bird feeders ready. And some people might say, oh, well, that's just a chore, but I enjoy doing that. I enjoy getting our feeders ready. I enjoy getting our hummingbird feeders ready so that I can sit and watch the birds and the hummingbirds. And sometimes the squirrels are funny to watch as they try to get into the bird feeders and stuff. And so it could be considered a chore to have, but it's also fun for me. And then I think about different areas around my house. So we have a hammock in the back. So I might put on the list, especially in the spring, I'll put, read in the hammock, or coffee on the porch, fire in the back because we have a little fire pit. So I just think about what's in the general area. And then I go outside from the house. So do I want to go strawberry picking? Do I want to go for a hike? Do I want to go for, we have some trails around here. So is there a particular trail I want to go to? And then I just, I kind of start inward and just work my way out to make it more bigger and more broad. And most of them I make that I can do them myself, and I don't have to have my family tag along if they're not interested. But they certainly can tag along if they are interested. That's how I make mine.
Usually my husband and I will sit down together and say, what are the things that we want to do? And we kind of make it it almost ends up being like date night ideas. So it's, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Some things are really specific. Some things are really broad. Like, I think one thing that's on there is go on a bike ride somewhere fun, because we don't know where we're going to want to go or what that's going to be. And anywhere can be fun, but fun makes it so it's not a bike ride in the neighborhood. It's a bike ride somewhere else. And so it's been neat to do it that way. I use a lot of social media to see what events are coming, just because when I lived in Southern Maryland, I knew that, the hospice run is in April and this event is this time. And then they have the luau, and down here I have zero idea what's going on. So I use a lot of what's coming. There was a crawfish festival 2 weeks ago. I would have never known that. It was super fun. And so looking at what's coming in the next few months is always part of it. And then the things that we enjoy doing. So we always like to go camping. So camping will be on there. The beach is always on there. But we get to go to the beach more frequently now. So it's is there a new brewery we want to try? Is there a new restaurant that we want to try? Things like that. Is there certain food items that are good in the summer that we want to make sure we have? So I don't really have as much of a rhyme or reason. I try to keep it to 1 page or less, because for me, too much also feels overwhelming, even if it's all fun stuff. So it's usually like 1 page, 2 columns, double spaced. And if it doesn't fit, then like you have to move something. And then we put a few freebies on there because, again, I'm the queen of, if it's too hard, I'm like, oh, I'll wait and start it later. But if I know I can easily go for a bike ride, that's probably going to want to be one of the first things that I can cross off.
I can relate to the overwhelm of having too many fun things on your list, especially when it comes to making lists for specific trips. And what came to mind was whenever my sister comes to visit me or whenever I go to visit my sister, we always have a running shared note on our phones that we prioritize things that we want to do together. And by the time we're actually together, it's huge and there's no way to do it all. So then we're faced with, well, what is the most important? And for summer bucket lists or for seasonal bucket lists, I do have a little bit of a formula. It's nothing too crazy, but just so that I can prioritize variety and feel like at the end of the season, it wasn't all my energy wasn't just spent in one place or doing one type of thing, because I can get very focused very fast on something, especially if I'm enjoying it, and then there's no time for anything else. Kind of like you were saying, Jen, with the bird feeders, I usually start with one chore or obligatory type thing that, yes, has to be done at some point, and it could be considered a chore, but also it's going to be gratifying in some way. So unlike the laundry and the dishes, which is like this never-ending chore that we're doing, taking out the trash, the reward for that is like not having trash in the house, which is just kind of lackluster. You know, having the bucket list item being the painting gives us the gratification of sort of a freshness in our home and a lasting result that we just had to do it once and now it's done, and we get to enjoy that. So that's the way that I chose that. And then I had one movement activity, one stillness activity, one new activity or outside of my comfort zone activity that I haven't done before, and then just the sort of footnote of prioritizing variety so that, again, I'm not spending all summer with my nose in a book or painting the whole house.
Yeah, so I think it's important for our listeners to hear. Mine can sometimes get pretty long. I think all of us have that tendency to maybe make the list a little too long. Anastasia, you said you keep yours to like a page. Les, yours could easily be a handful of things. You know, something gratifying, something new, something movement still. I would say, you know, take the old bridal thing, right? Something new, something blue, something borrowed. Nope, that's not right. Old, new, borrowed, blue, right? So just pick a handful of things, something inside, outside, moving still, just so you have a handful of things that you can put on a list so that you don't get overwhelmed with the things that you possibly could do. And then it feels more daunting and like a chore than actually enjoying the summertime. Awesome. Any last minute thoughts about summer bucket lists from either of you guys before we finish up?
Sometimes it can be a really fun activity to do with a group of friends or with other people too, especially if it's something you've never done before. Kind of getting together with a group of girlfriends and talking about what are things that we could all put on our summer bucket list that you could do individually or together can sometimes be fun, because somebody else is like, you guys have talked about ideas that I hadn't even considered, and so sometimes opening other people up to your circle can be really helpful to see kind of what they're looking to get into.
I like the idea of making it a social thing. And when you said that, it made me kind of think of the circles or groups that sometimes I see. I've never attended one myself, but people will have sort of manifestation board or vision board parties where they kind of come together in collage, and it's a craft, but it's also a brainstorm and sort of opportunity to share ideas and communicate your intentions externally. I think that's a really important part of it, because I think we get stuck in the loop really easily all the time of I'm intending to do this. This is something I'll do next week. This is something I'll do when dot dot dot. And once you say it out loud, even just sharing it with one other person, there is just a bit of accountability that comes with that. And if you were to put the energy of having a whole event, you know, where you're talking with your friends about the things that you intend to do, I think that increases the accountability of it even more and helps you stay focused on those things that you want to do instead of just kind of getting stuck in your head with them.
Yeah, so that is a great lead in to what we always ask in our podcast is feel free to share with us. Feel free to tag us on social media. If you are putting together a bucket list or you want to share bucket list ideas with us, you can always, again, tag us, but send us a DM. You can email me, Jennifer@hopehealingtherapy.com. We'd love to have your ideas, share your ideas, and hear what you're doing for the summer. Les and Anastasia, thanks again for joining me. It was great to chat with you guys. And to our listeners, thanks for being here, and I hope you have a great day.